Our beauty standards can be traced far back to Greece, at least man's beauty standards. Aphrodite looked like a Bigfoot in a gollum posture, but considering man, the body of the sculptures were rocking a six-pack and had perfect symmetry, such as the world-famous art of the discus thrower. Look at the calm, stoic face, no signs of struggle while the arm veins are popping. Look at these androgenic shoulder muscles and ab symmetry, very similar to what you see on men's health cover nowadays. But where did artists get those body looks from? Were people actually able to achieve such godlike body back then? Or were Greeks using Photoshop? Here's 3 lessons from the history of weight training. Women's beauty standards have changed quite a bit, as food were scarce in the last thousands of years. In the past, men were more interested in women that had a little bit more weight on their hips, as this made it more likely for them to survive childbirth, for example. Men's beauty standards stayed roughly the same. The only real difference is the size of our wiener. You know, the chonies of Greeks were pretty damn small. Anyway, the beauty standards for men stayed mostly the same because muscles have always been beneficial in the face of evolution. Men have more muscles and less body fat than women and therefore compete on a physical level. While the hardest form of competing is physical fighting, a less damaging form is basically showing off. You see this in the animal kingdom and you basically see this in modern day primates. Before a fight you make yourself big. You want to show dominance over your opponent without getting hurt. If your male opponent is seeing you as a threat, aka you being able to inflict damage on his organism, he is less likely to go on a fight with you. The psychological aspect is huge in fighting. That's why you see MMA fighters trying to intimidate their opponents before a fight. Of course, a part of it is marketing, but another part is simply to weaken the opponent psychologically before a fight. A key part of being known as a threat is to have muscles, as muscles are the key aspect in developing movement and force. The more muscles you have, the more force you can generate, therefore the more damage you're capable of doing to the other person. Muscles were beneficial in the face of evolution. Yes, in my experience it's a huge plus for girls, although they don't really like to tell you that, and men respect you more. Due to sexual and natural selection, men were always interested in acquiring muscles. The first documented case of progressive weight training was in ancient Greece, where Milo of Croton lifted a calf every single day until it was a bull. Another Greek, the physician Galen, described strength training exercises using the halters. Where originally people simply trained with stones, they then used halters which were similar to dumbbells. And here's the biggest downside of ancient weight training. Ancient dumbbells were only weighing between 2 and 9 kilograms. This makes long-term progression impossible, as you usually max out the 9 kilograms in the first year of progressive weight training. If you don't have progression over the first year, it will be impossible for you to build a Greek body, as your body mainly builds muscles on a certain rep range, which is between 6 to 12. If you do 100 biceps curls without a break, you will better your cardiovascular fitness and your nutrient and oxygen supply of your muscles. But you will not generate hypertrophy. You will not grow the existing muscle cells and therefore won't create bigger muscles. So if you want to create muscles, make sure you're progressing the weight and not the reps. Repetitions can be changed now and then, but focus on increasing the weight and keeping the reps steady. Now you may say, but QG, ancient men were much tougher than we are to this day. Greek children started work when they were 3 years old. The people that were rowing in the ships were expected to do that for 12 hours at a time while eating a less than optimal diet. And you're right, times back then were tough. But these cases are similar to an ultra-endurance runner nowadays. Look at them, they're not walking titans, they're sticks, as their body's optimized for cardiovascular feats, not for maximum strength. Or look at children in Africa or the Aborigines, they live a super tough life and they're malnourished. Are they freaking muscular? No, because their body is adapted for survival as the Greeks were, not for hypertrophy as you have to be when you want to have a Greek god body. It's true that being tough and having muscles often go together, as training needs discipline willpower and grit, but they are still two separate things. While dumbbell training was in some kinds of form a daily staple for our ancestors, dating back to ancient Greece, it was also kind of popular in the Renaissance, and even Benjamin Franklin in the 18th century was known to hit the weight sometimes. Weight training nonetheless only really was effective starting in the 19th to 20th century, when shot or plate loaded dumbbells were introduced in the fitness trend, as this made progression easy. The progressive weight training is what makes the Greek bodies possible in the first place. Weight training was a great leisure activity back then, with fitness instructors looking like French cavaliers. I'm sure it made you feel great and gave you some sort of muscles, but for real muscle growth you need progression of the weights at a certain range of repetition, which happens to be roughly between 6 to 12. For this progression you needed a great variety of dumbbells, which the gyms most likely didn't have, or you needed to load the bar with more plates, shots of lead, or use exercise machines, which only really was possible in the last 100 to 200 years. Greek sculptures are therefore more idealistic. They give us an idea of how the perfect body would look like, but they're never similar to reality. They're a product of the imagination of Greek and Roman sculptors. What we do with Photoshop or steroids nowadays, our ancestors have done with extra bronze or marble hundreds of years ago.